Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Look, today we're unpacking a massive financial crisis that's quietly brewing just beneath the surface of the global economy. I mean, while everyone's been totally distracted by soaring tech stocks and the whole AI hype train, an absolute tidal wave has been building in the background. And honestly, the craziest part? It is happening right in front of our eyes, but almost nobody is talking about it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. $2.5 trillion. It's a staggering number, right? This represents the size of the private credit market. It's a vital sector of our financial system, and it's exploded by almost tenfold since 2007. Right now, industry players are parading around basically claiming everything's perfectly fine and totally under control. But beneath the surface, massive cracks are forming, and the actual data is telling a completely different, much darker story.
Section 1. The price of money.
To really understand this impending wave, we've got to look at the normally predictable bond market. Because right now, we are seeing a massive global shock. Just look at these numbers. The US 30-year Treasury yield is hitting its highest level since 2007. The UK 30-year, highest since 1998. Germany is at its highest since 2011, and Japan's 30-year is sitting at an absolute all-time high. You know, the bond market is often called the adult in the room of the financial world. And right now, while retail investors are off distracted, the adult in the room just quietly pulled the plug on the whole party.
Section 2. Bond prices and yields.
Now, before we look at the economic damage all of this causes, we definitely need to peel back the onion on the underlying mechanics here. Those headline numbers we just talked about, they're just the symptom. We need to understand the actual disease. In its absolute simplest form, a bond is really just an IOU. It's a piece of paper from a government or company promising to pay back a fixed amount on a fixed date. The bond yield is simply the return an investor gets, and that yield is entirely dictated by the price buyers are actually willing to bid for that piece of paper. So the absolutely crucial point here is this inverse relationship. Think of it kind of like a seesaw. If buyers are scrambling for bonds, the price gets bid up and the yield falls. But if buyers just aren't interested, the price has to drop to attract them, which inherently makes the yield rise. Price down equals yield up. Therefore, when yields are spiking globally like we just saw, it literally means buyers are demanding a much higher return just to lock up their money.
And why exactly are they demanding higher returns? Well, it breaks down into 4 pretty logical steps. First off, the Federal Reserve raises the baseline interest rate, which makes old, lower-paying bonds completely unappealing. Second, inflation fears. Investors demand more upfront return to protect their purchasing power. Third, supply is surging. I mean, the US is issuing Costco-sized amounts of new debt right now, totally exhausting the pool of eager buyers. And fourth, demand drops, as foreign institutions actually begin to doubt whether the US can pay back its massive debt.
Section 3. Fixed versus floating debt.
Now, while those 30-year yields ask big questions about the future, the Federal Reserve's rate hikes are causing immediate, severe, and highly measurable pain right now on the short end of the yield curve. And this brings us to a critical distinction. Look, most of us are familiar with fixed-rate debt, right? Like a standard 30-year mortgage. You lock your rate in on day one, and literally no matter what the economy does, your monthly payment never changes. But corporate debt, that relies heavily on floating-rate debt. With this, the interest rate is pegged to a benchmark plus a spread, meaning if that benchmark rate goes up, the borrower's mandatory interest payment goes right up with it.
And the benchmark for almost all of these corporate floating loans is SOFR. That's the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. Now, back in early 2022, SOFR was essentially sitting at 0%. Then the Fed started hiking. Fast forward to mid-2023, and SOFR jumped from near zero to over 5%. This incredibly aggressive rate hike essentially set a massive trap for corporate borrowers who are just suddenly hit with skyrocketing interest payments out of nowhere.
Section 4. The corporate debt squeeze.
Let's follow this money downstream into the multi-trillion-dollar private credit market to see exactly how this rate shock destroys companies in real time. Let's take a look at a software company called Pluralsight. In 2021, they were acquired for over $3 billion, and that was funded largely by floating-rate private credit debt. Now, in early 2022, with SOFR near zero, the math worked perfectly, no problems at all. But as SOFR blew past 5% in 2023, Pluralsight's interest payments became completely unsustainable. By August 2024, they were totally underwater. The private credit lenders actually had to step in, inject new money, and forcibly take 85% of the company's equity.
Section 5. Sneaky accounting and cockroaches.
Which leads us to the final layer of our mystery today. If major companies like Pluralsight are failing due to this massive rate shock,
Why is the private credit industry publicly acting like everything is completely fine? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the reality on the ground. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon recently said regarding credit market cracks, "When you see one cockroach, there are probably more." And you know what? The data absolutely backs him up. The Fitch private credit default rate just hit a record 6%, literally the highest since its inception. Pluralsight wasn't an isolated incident, guys. They're just one borrower in a massive stack of companies all absorbing the exact same compounding rate shock.
So how exactly are they hiding it? Through something called payment in kind, or PIK. It's truly wild. This is an incredibly creative accounting trick where if a borrower can't afford the new, higher cash interest payments, the lender just lets them add that unpaid interest onto their total principal balance. So technically, no cash changes hands, but officially, no payment was missed. It magically prevents the struggling company from entering into a technical default.
But here is where the whole thing gets wildly absurd. A huge portion of private credit is run through business development companies, or BDCs. To keep a zero corporate income tax status, these funds are legally required to distribute 90% of their taxable income as cash to investors. And guess what? They record that unpaid PIK interest as income, meaning they are literally forced to mail out actual cash dividends to their investors based on money they never actually collected from the struggling borrower. Just think about that for a second. This isn't just one or two companies doing this. It's building into a massive systemic issue. Today, roughly 12% of private credit loans include these PIK features. To put that into perspective, that is a 72% increase since the end of 2021. And alarmingly, more than half of these are classified as bad PIKs, meaning they weren't part of the original loan agreement. They were slapped on later, specifically because the borrower started drowning in interest payments and couldn't actually pay cash.
And if you want to see Dimon's cockroaches in the actual data, just look at these numbers. The average public BDC reports about 8% of its income is PIK, meaning 8 cents of every dollar of income is basically fake cash. But take a look at the fund FSKKR. They're running PIKs at over 14.5% of their total investment income. Unsurprisingly, their non-accrual loans, meaning loans where borrowers have just completely stopped paying, have also surpassed 5%.
Now remember, these private credit loans don't trade publicly. They happen in the dark, appraised on a predetermined schedule using internal models. But MSCI recently reported that over 10% of private credit loans are already being internally marked down by at least 50 cents on the dollar. The damage is already here, folks. It's just being temporarily papered over by these accounting illusions. Which leaves us with this massive, looming question to wrap up our explainer today. There is an $85 billion maturity wall coming due between 2026 and 2029. All these companies that borrowed at near 0%, they're going to have to refinance at today's painfully high rates. You might be able to hide a loss in an accounting line today by rolling unpaid interest into a bigger principal, but bad math never just disappears. Someone is going to have to face the consequences. So, what do you think happens when that wall finally hits? Thank you for joining me, and stay curious, focused learners.